This is going to be UTC number 3, Unquenchable Thirst Commentary number 3 for the Fury Warrior. And I'll be fighting a Frost Mage in this fight. It'll be a 1v1. First, gear. He is not fully geared. He's at 692 item level. For reference, my warrior is 696 equipped, which I'll show you a little bit later on. And this guy, he does have the Conquest weapon. Checking his arena experience, he is 2.2 rated in 3s, 2K rated in 2s, and 1750 in 5s, not that that matters. And on duels, duels won, 1,715, duels lost, 952. So he's dueled quite a bit. All right, and he wins most of them. So we can compare that to my warrior. And again, it says 698 here, but it's actually 696 equipped. I have a few pieces that are blue here. And my experience, oh wow, this is horrible. 1553s, 1752s, man. So I would look at this and say, well, this is a below average player, you know. And okay, well maybe, you know, I don't like arena, and I'm just a dueler. Well, let's check out my duels. Duels won 12, duels lost 7. Oh, there's no chance. Okay, so this will be a 1v1. I'm a warrior against a Frost Mage. I think most people would agree Frost Mage has an advantage in this 1v1. And I'm a horrible player. I'm 1550, I mean a rat. They call it a rat, I think? Yeah, a rat. I think I'd be referred to as a rat, an arena rat. 1553s against a 2200 rated 3s player. And duels? 12 won, 7 lost against, what was it? Like somewhere like 1700 won and 900 lost. I have no chance against this guy. And you know, the intent of these movies, you know, I'm showing 1v1s, and when I'm doing this, I'm not always going to show fights that I win. I'm going to show some fights that I've lost. In fact, I have one in mind, right, because I want to make a specific point. It'll be against a rogue. That'll be a later movie. Because you can always learn something from fights. In fact, you'll usually learn more from the fights that you lose than from the fights that you win. So I'm going to go ahead and show this fight in unedited form, regular speed, unedited form, and then I'll go back and I'll take a look at it afterwards and talk about, you know, what I did right, what I did wrong, what the mage did right, what the mage did wrong. But who am I to tell them what they're doing right or wrong? I mean, they're a superior player than me by far. Okay, so let's talk about this fight, and before I do that, it needs to be set up what happened right before this. So this was a BG where the Horde seemed to have a pre-made, and they were beating the crap out of the Alliance team pretty soundly. And I am leaving a fight here where they just came in and they just were crushing people. So I had used my Die by the Sword, I had used Spell Reflect, I had used my Fear to get some people off of me, and I was leaving this losing fight. And here you see in the background is the Mage. So the Mage was coming after me, right? The Mage was chasing me. It was not the other way around. Right there you see him hitting me. So I continue, you know, running around here, hoping, and I'm looking back because I want the Mage to chase me and I want to get a 1v1 with him. And unfortunately, you see there's this Hunter. You know, credit to the Hunter, he did not add into the fight. Now, one of the reasons why I needed to talk about the cooldown situation was this. So Spell Reflect is on cooldown here, and when you're fighting a Frost Mage, or you know, you're fighting a Mage, it's nice if you can reflect the Deep Freeze. And typically what they'll do is they'll Deep Freeze you after they root you. If I had had Spell Reflect up here, I would have probably used it right here in the middle of this leap. And notice here that I used leap to close the gap here instead of opening with charge. I could have possibly reflected the deep freeze here. Now I find deep freeze is harder to predict on reflex than, for example, HOJ, which you can pretty reliably predict quite often in asphyxiate. You know, I don't have it available, so he's able to deep freeze me. And also what I don't have available, my trinket is down, right? So I had to use the trinket to get out of that fight. And also, you know, when we talked about that last fight with the mage, I mentioned, you know, using the rocket to get this nice extra damage. Well, my rockets are down as well, so I'm not going to get that nice little extra boost of damage, right? And he's able to unload some damage into me. You know, I look at this situation, you know, look at his positioning and his facing. At that point in time, you know, you have some choices. You can charge him to get on him, but what I'm going to do is I am going to stun him, because there's one of two possibilities here. He is going to blink, which would be really bad for him, because if he blinks, he's going to blink right up into the wall here, and I'll just turn around and I'll be right on him, right? Or he's going to sit in the stun, and I'm going to be able to come up and snare him. Now what he ends up doing here is he ends up trinketing the stun, but he trinkets it a little bit late, but I'm close enough to him where I can hit him with a hamstring before he can get off, right? And there is a root, and he starts casting again. Now that root breaks early, and I make a mistake here. This is something I think I need to work on. Throughout this entire fight, the cooldown on my spell reflect was lagging behind the cooldown refresh on his deep freeze, and it would have been much better for me just not to use spell reflect at all and hold on to it until later in the fight when I thought he might deep freeze me again, because I end up wasting it completely here, right? I throw it up. Since the root breaks early, I'm able to charge and interrupt that frostbolt cast. It would have been better for me not to interrupt it. That way it would have reflected back in his face, but I actually interrupted it. He goes into, right, a frost firebolt then, but my spell reflect is going to drop before that goes off, so I completely wasted my spell reflect there. I should have held on to it, and then maybe it would have been useful towards the end of the fight. Okay, so he hits me there, and I am doing a good job staying on him. I keep him hamstring, and this was the benefit of me doing leap and start the engagement, then charge. He uses blazing speed, and I use my second charge, right, to get back on him again. Notice that this fight is a lot different than the Arcane Mage, where the Arcane Mage, I was having to use Piercing Howl a lot, where I'm not really having to use Piercing Howl here because he's not gaining separation. I'm doing a really good job of staying on him and keeping him snared with hamstring, where I don't need Piercing Howl. I haven't used Piercing Howl once yet in this fight. Right, so I'm on him, I'm doing good damage to him. I think he probably starts panicking a bit here because my health is still high and he's under 50% health. He probably did not expect this to happen. And I think, you know, when I'm fighting these mages, I get the feeling that they underestimate. You know, they look at this and they say, oh, there's a warrior, there's a free kill, but then things aren't working out so well for them, and, you know, they start making mistakes. Whereas maybe if I fought this mage in a second fight, he wouldn't underestimate me right from the beginning. He'd take it more seriously, and it would be a much harder fight. So you see, I'm doing good damage there to him, and he is going to blink. And notice here, I use my Piercing Howl. I sensed that he was gaining range on me. I used Piercing Howl to try to keep him snared, but the blink took him out of range of that Piercing Howl, but he still has hamstring on him. I am not going to use charge to close the gap here. Since he has just used blink, and I look at my cooldown timer, my Stormbolt is coming up in 1 second. So the much better choice here is for me to stun him at range with Stormbolt and just walk up to him and re-snare him, right? So I'm going to hold on to my charge. I stun him, walk up to him, I snare him with Piercing Howl, and at this point in time, he has no choice but to ice block. And I mentioned this before when I was talking about the fight with the Paladin. Before you do your big closing finishing damage, which is Blade Storm with Wreck, you need to set it up. You need to get through some defenses. Now for the Paladin, I had to wait for PvP Trinket and the bubble. For this Mage, I have to wait for PvP Trinket, which I got at the beginning, and that was a really good thing that happened at the beginning, right? Because if he was in a situation there where it was more open field and he could have broken that with a blink, right, then he might still have his PvP Trinket here at the end of the fight. You have to get through Ice Block, which I just did, and I have to make sure that his blink is on cooldown. Now the other thing to worry about would be Cold Snap, but that's a very long cooldown, and in a BG environment, you just have to assume that that is not up. If it is up, the fight becomes much more difficult. It turns out he does not have Cold Snap. I go ahead and get on the pet to do some damage and, you know, maybe get some procs and a little bit of healing from it. a mage would normally have pet move to bound, and they would make sure that the pet was not near them, you know, when they ice block. This is what I was talking about before, where I wasted my spell reflect, and because of that, my cooldown on spell reflect was always lagging behind his deep freeze. This would have been a perfect time to use it when they're sitting in the block and you notice they're coming out, or you sense they're going to come out of it. That is a really good time to use spell reflect, because a very common pattern is that they will stun you coming out of that block, which is exactly what he does here. And if I had not wasted that spell reflect, I might have been able to reflect that deep freeze. Right, so this is another one of those things where you look at these, you see your mistakes, and then hopefully you learn from those mistakes and you apply it correctly. You do things correctly in the next fight in a similar situation. You know, my trinket is down still, so my trinket's been down this entire fight, and I have to sit it. In my opinion, I think that he should have been moving farther away from me. Notice how close he's staying to me. And I think this was the biggest mistake that he made here at the end, is that he was not putting enough room between himself and myself before he started planning to cast these frostbolts. Right, see, look how close he is. And, you know, yeah, he's hitting me with good damage, you know, some 40Ks in there. He's letting me get back on him. That was the Raging Blow proc that I got off of his pet. I'm able to hit him with it. It's like 20k main hand, 11 or 12k offhand, and then a white damage of 15k. You add those three numbers up, that's pretty good damage right there. He's popped Icy Veins. I am going to go ahead and basically spell reflect this frostbolt right in his face. Notice the cast right there? It's right here. I hit spell reflect right in his face. That was a good spell reflect. You know, it would have been better to use on deep freeze, but at least I got something from that one. And you're going to see here I get a really nice absorb though. So he hits me with Ice Nova, and you see 41.5k there. That's how much got through. If you look at the absorb over here, you know, that's a 30k damage absorb. That is good, people. And, you know, when people say spell barrier sucks, you could not be more wrong. That's like a 30k heal, right? So you add in my healing from Bloodthirst, and you say, oh, Bloodthirst, it's such a small heal, you know, it's so insignificant. Well, it has many more benefits than just the heal itself, which I talked about in my guide video. I'm not going to get into all of that right now because the benefits from it are numerous. But when you talk about healing, you also have to add the absorbs, because when you're fighting someone 1v1, an absorb is just as good as a heal. So right here you see there's like an 8k Bloodthirst, and then there's this like 30k absorb. That's like a 38k heal. I mean, and over the course of a fight, what that is doing, it's adding to my overall health pool, right? So I have 459k health here unbuffed because I either didn't have it or he stole it from, right? I have 505k when I have the stamina buff. That's a lot of health, but then you add in the Bloodthirst that I'm getting and the absorbs throughout a fight, and I'm pushing up more like, you know, definitely over 600k, I would say, you know, an overall effective health. Maybe more, I don't know, I'd have to measure it and see. And, he's going to Blazing Speed. I just really feel that he was making mistakes here. You know, he was pulling up too short to start his cast. I mean, yeah, he's going for, you know, the kill here, and I'm low health, but he's letting me get on him without having to use a charge. See, that's the key. He needs to get enough distance where he's doing damage to me where I feel I have to use charge or I'm going to die. But he never does that to me, so I'm able to hold on to my charge, and he lets me get on him and apply pressure to him. You know, again, I'm low health here, and right there I got some Wild Strike procs, but before I can unleash those Wild Strike procs, he blinks. Right, he's going to blink right there, but that's fine. Let's go through the checklist. PvP trinket down, ice block down, blink down. If he has cold snap, you know, good for him. If he doesn't, checkmate. I am going to charge him with a Stormbolt so they hit at the same time and wreck Blade Storm on top of him. With his health, he either dies in the stun or comes out nearly dead. Bam. Patience. You have to be patient. You have to set it up. Your kill will almost always come from Blade Storm by setting it up, making sure that their defenses are gone. Oh wait, I did win this. I thought I said I was going to lose it. Well, I don't know. I guess I got lucky. Take care.